So if you weren't aware of this already, grass-fed organ meats such as beef liver, heart, and kidneys are well documented as one of the most nutrient-dense superfoods in the world. In fact, not only was organ meat prized by our ancestors, but many medical experts now consider it to be the ultimate paleo superfood. But we get it. A lot of people are a little bit adverse to either the taste or where to source and cook and how to incorporate this into your life. And that is why Paleo Valley made grass-fed organ complex, just making it way easier for you to get the full spectrum of these traditional superfoods loaded with nutrients. It helps with fatigue, skin issues. It's supportive of those with iron issues, and it's chock full of nature's multivitamins from vitamin A, B12, and other B vitamins. It's also really high in CoQ10, a concentrated source for cardiovascular health. So you don't need to worry about picking up liver and cooking it, but go to paleovalley.com, get yourself a bottle of grass-fed organ complex, and use code KICKASSLIFE for 15% off.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about one of my favorite new companies, and that is Rep Provisions. So I met these guys at PaleoFX last year where they were just blowing everyone away with their beef sticks and pecan nut butter combo packs that are outrageously delicious. But as I talked to them, I was even more blown away because I found out what they were about. They are a regenerative agriculture company committed to the future of the planet by the proper management of cattle. So they are regenerating America's grasslands with the management of their cattle. Look into it. It's amazing. They have everything from, of course, high quality grass-fed, grass-finished beef to Mongolisa pork, which is like the Wagyu of pork, to bone broth popsicles, pecan nut butters, like I said, and so many amazing things. Go support them and support the future of our planet. And they're giving you 15% off for being a Kick-Ass Life podcast listener. So use coupon code KICKASSLIFE and get 15% off at repprovisions.com.
Hey everyone, we're going to take a minute here at the top of the show to chat with you about some of our sponsors who are offering incredible discounts for you and your family. We also only align ourselves with companies that we know are providing safe and healthy products, and also products that we actually consume on a regular, if not sometimes daily basis. And one of those companies is Primal Kitchen. Primal Kitchen products are incredible because they are dairy-free, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free with no refined sugar. And they are delicious. So visit primalkitchen.com to check out the vast array of products available and use code KICKASSLIFE for 10% off. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kick-Ass Life podcast. On our last episode, we got into retreats, coaching, and Tara and I talked about some of the themes we've noticed that have come up with life coaching, spiritual coaching, all of that kind of stuff. And we didn't have time to get to the themes and the things that we know around health coaching, which we're going to get into today. But most importantly, I would like to introduce you to Tara Garrison, who is a new published author. She has a new title now. You guys, this is, I am getting goosebumps right now. It is so wonderful. Go to Amazon.com immediately. Please type in short-term keto or Tara Garrison and pre-order her book. Even if you don't care about keto, if you like this podcast and you support us, please support Tara. Pre-order sales are just such an important thing for authors. Usually something's on pre-order for a couple of months before it's actually released and then sent out. And also on that note too, you'll see a price on there that will be higher than what you'll end up paying. So as the pre-order process goes along, you will probably be paying less than what the price says right now. I already went on there and did it. You also won't be able to write a review until the book actually comes out on December 7th. But this is just so exciting. If you guys have been following us, you know what a long way Tara has come and has really created her own reality. And I love that that there's a book now that is out there forever about your expertise with keto and with health and nutrition and coming from a place where you have absolutely done it yourself. So, but before we get into the details of your book, let's talk a little bit about some of the themes we have noticed with health coaching. Now, I don't do what Tara does in terms of like calculate, I get too deep into the woods on calculating macros and things like that. But I do talk diet and exercise with people all of the time. But most of the health coaching I do is about hypothyroidism and thyroid issues. And I will say that there's a couple themes that always come up. One, it's thinking the doctor knows more than you. Putting your health in the hands of a doctor, getting diagnosed with something and not going, I need to learn about this versus please someone be my savior. Now, I understand that I might be that for people. Of course, that's why I'm here to help people understand this and work with their doctors and tell them what's up and how to get through this. And same with you. But at the other end of the day, it's I think we just put such a stake in people who have an MD. And in my experience with the paleothyroid solution, and on the cover of the book, is stop feeling fat, foggy, and fatigued at the hands of uninformed doctors. There unfortunately are too many uninformed doctors out there. So one of the themes is I'm powerless. I don't know enough. I can't learn it, or I need someone else to just save me. And I will tell you the truth. All these years, all around the world, I've coached people in Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Australia. It doesn't matter where it is. It's all the same story with the thyroid. And it's all the same story with they suffered for X amount of time until they stepped up. And usually that stepping up is calling me to get educated and get a one-on-one perspective and a detailed thing. And unfortunately, yeah, I really shouldn't know more than their doctor, but often that's the case. So I feel like it's this powerlessness. And I was there too. That's why I suffered for years before I finally took my health into my own hands and fixed it twice in 10 years. And it was because I just kept going to the doctor. I was like, they should know, right? They should know. And now I know better. While I have a wonderful doctor and Dr. Forsman, who's on my book, The Paleothyroid Solution, I also know that he would want me to go do my own research, come to him with counterpoints, and learn about this. And that's the point. And I think in both of the arenas of health coaching that we work in is to empower you to be your own health advocate. So while I can be one for you or for the masses, you have to be your own. And then I guess the second thing off of that, and then I'll let you speak on this, is goes to confidence and self-esteem around doctors. So it's tough for people to speak up because doctors are often have very high egos. Maybe your doctor's like, no, I know what to do. This is this, or whatever. And you have a different point of view. You're trying to bring them a book. What I have realized is that sometimes it's impossible and you have to find a new doctor. Sometimes, though, if you educate yourself enough and you are there to show them that and speak up, not to school them and be like, you don't know what you're doing. You got to be a little bit more diplomatic. But once you learn, they are more likely to practice medicine with you. They are more likely to learn something from you about your situation that not only will help other people, but you're helping them help you. So the more knowledgeable you are, the more you understand your condition, the better, honestly, the perseverance pays. The knowledge that the work you do on understanding and grasping pays. I bet it's the same thing for keto or any other modality. You can follow a keto plan, blah, blah, but unless you understand the deeper things behind it, perhaps you won't be as successful or won't enjoy the process as much because you're not as empowered. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about those two things.
Yeah, that correlates exactly with changing your body through nutrition and exercise. If you are in the mentality of, I don't know what I'm doing, and you even have like a 5%, like, I don't know if I can do this, you're probably not going to, right? I'm highly likely not going to. It has to be this deep rooted belief where when you sit on a call with me or you sit on a call with Elle, it's like, I'm on this journey and I'm paying you to give me the shortcuts, give me some good information. I like really look at us as a Cliff's Notes, let us go do all the certifications and working with people all over the years, but it's like, this is my journey that I'm doing. Like, I know where I'm going. And so please give me the shortcuts. But if you come in this energy of like, oh, I don't know, and you're insulting yourself and disempowering yourself and I just don't even know if I can do this. And well, you won't, because that's what you're telling yourself, that your unconscious story is, I am not going to make progress. I'm not going to heal my thyroid. I'm not going to fix my gut. I'm not going to get in shape. I'm never going to get there. And if that's what you think, then that is what you will get. But if you're like, no, for me, going from, I've told you guys in previous episodes, I used to be the mom who, like, right now, after this podcast, kids are here. It's summer. Everybody's hungry. Let's just go to McDonald's or Wendy's. Let's go to Taco Bell. Let's make grilled cheese on white bread. Like that was my life. Ramen noodles, pizza. Like that was the life that I lived my entire life up until I changed things. And I took that power into my own hands. And in my internal story was, watch me, I'm doing this. I knew before everybody else did. And to be honest, like, first of all, thank you so much for the support on the book. And it is so cool to see it come to fruition. And I'm excited on all the levels. I'm excited to have people read it and receive feedback. And but I was telling Elle before we started, like,
this trajectory that I've been on professionally was exactly the same mentality that I had in my health. Was like, I already know, I see the end. Like, I see where I'm going. I know that's happening. It's just a matter of time before I get there. Right. And that's how I was with my body. So if you have that deep knowing of like, no, no, this is where I'm going, that confidence, that taking it by the reins yourself, like, this is my freaking journey. No one's going to do it for me. No one's going to just, say, hey, you should improve your life. Hey, are you improving your life? You have to do that. You have to do that part. And then everybody that comes in, yes, there is law of attraction. Yes, there, Victory Belt hit me up with an offer on this book. It's freaking law of attraction, manifestation magic. I'm super grateful for that. So much of the legwork, though, to be able to be in a space where I could attract that was me going after it, me taking things by the horns.
Or you at the gym wearing the shitty clothes right from the beginning when you were a
Yeah.
frumpy mom and
Right.
going, well, you know what? Like, got to start somewhere, right? At some
Right.
point. And now look at you in all your snacky, sexy outfits. But and that's not what it's about, the superficiality. But again,
keep
you
the
have to
faith,
start
man.
somewhere. You
Yeah.
reminded yourself, you were like, well, I'm not already there. So you're like, hold on. You got to start somewhere. It's just like anything.
Keep that vision. Keep lock on it as many times as you have to, right? Like, I don't care if you just ate 25 donuts. It's like, it's okay. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm getting there. Next meal is going to be healthy. That's it. Jump right back in. Let's go. I can't tell you how many times I've stumbled. I invested, a couple $1,000s into an app I was trying to build when I didn't know what I was doing, and I got totally taken, and I barely had freaking money to live, and I lost $2,000 in the app. I've had many little quote unquote failures, which I don't really believe in. I call them more learning experiences, but it's just keep that faith. It's like, I am going there. I know where I'm going. I know why I'm doing it. I know I have good intentions. I know what's in my heart. I know I can serve, keep that confidence, keep that faith going. And that, whether it's you're on like an autoimmune healing journey, a gut healing journey, a mental health healing journey, body composition changes, going after what you want in your career or relationships or whatever, keep that freaking faith. You just know where you're going.
Yeah.
What's that?
And keep persevering. I mean,
yes.
I think both of us are great examples of you changed your body and health, thus your brain. Naturally, all of your neurotransmitters and everything's firing way better now than when you were eating Taco Bell and a frumpy mom. I completely solved my hypothyroidism, and I mean that's a whole thing. And also too, like my hand disability and moving forward, trying to find a way to use my voice in life and not have to be at some desk 40 hours a week on the computer.
Right.
So we are examples of triumphant thinking and of perseverance. And it's not to say there weren't trips ups along the way, but we've been through all of that. So we can impart it onto you. And again, like she said, give you the shortcuts. Okay. Let's just, unless there's not, I want to get right into the book, unless there's something else you want to touch on.
Yeah.
Okay. So
segues well.
I love this, you guys, everybody. Again, Amazon.com, short-term keto, or just type in Tara Garrison, get that book, order it to support Tara and in general, because it's going to be useful information. And even if you already know what's up, order it, because someone in your life is going to come around and they're going to need it. But this goes back to your original kind of resonating with what Mark Sisson said about metabolic flexibility, about do keto not forever. And that's it thus became short-term keto. You once were like, hey, keto in and out. The idea of, hey, get in there. It's going to be important, but you don't have to stay there forever. Now, there are reasons why people would stay there forever. But first of all, I guess before we get into the details of keto, because for people that are new to it, we'll want to share what keto is. I think so many people have misconceptions of it. There are so many pitfalls, and I know all of these things are going to be addressed in your book. But tell us a bit about, the experience of just like writing a book and going through this, because you did have something along the way where you were like writing to like write a book and you realized, oh, I need to put this in my own voice.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, even before that, guys, was a really cool story was I had sent Elle my keto in and out program, and she's like, Tara, you practically have a book here. You should just turn it into a book. And I want to share this because it's part of that same kind of journey thing we were just talking about. And so I was like, okay, yeah, help me write a book, Elle. I don't, she's telling me probably want this many words. You could go with a publisher, you could self-publish, here's some resources. And so I was starting, we were going down that journey, and I actually had a really powerful meditation. And to be frank, I was like, what do I need to do to create more financial security for myself, so I don't feel like I'm constantly having to be in this like grind of making sure that I filled my client load. And, I was just like, can I have, what should I do? And I heard crystal clear, write your book. Write your book. Okay. Now at that time, I actually, this book is exciting because my next book is going to be my book of all this crazy ass journey that I've been on of changing my entire life. And so I thought my intuition meant that book. So I actually started writing that book too. Right. So I kind of had these two projects going on. I was actually having a ton of fun with it. And anyway, 2 weeks into that, I check LinkedIn. I never check LinkedIn. I apologize if you've ever messaged me on LinkedIn. I check it like maybe 3 or 4 months, every 3 or 4 months. Happen to check it and see this message from Victory Belt offering me to write a book with a book offer on keto in and out. And I was like, holy shit, seriously? I'm like, is this real? Is this like one of those, automated? I'm like, yeah.
Magic.
I would love to. And so we jump on a call, boom, they give me an offer, the full bit. And here we are, and so I share that because we talk about law of attraction a lot on this podcast. And I'm just like, you've got to be freaking kidding me.
When I remember you left me a voice message or something, you're like, it was like 2 weeks after I was like, you should write a book. You're like, no, I've been thinking about that. And then you were like, holy shit, I just got it over. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was so quick. Like,
yeah. And another thing I'll share real quick on kind of the emotional side of the journey is I share this in the introduction to the book, but when I first started preaching, like, don't do keto forever, that came from so deep inside my soul, but it was not professionally intelligent, I thought at the time, because this was in the beginning of 2018 when keto was it was a freaking heyday. Like, I am getting client requests left and right. Everybody wants to try keto. I'm on all these podcasts and Facebook lives, and it's just like keto mania. And at that time, still, when you would go to the keto conferences, you would barely hear mention of like cyclical keto, or targeted keto, which are some approaches where you can incorporate carbs. Those were like barely mentioned, but the main message was ketones are the preferred fuel source. This is like the way more advanced way for human beings to eat. It's so much healthier. Like, in the keto world, it was like all keto all the way. And
all or nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had several experiences. Well, I myself had just gotten off keto, and I'll tell you guys in a second, I was having very favorable outcomes coming off of keto. And I was like, and I had that with several clients as well. And on top of it, I was at KetoCon, and I had these 3 different women come up to me, and they were like, I could tell they just been indoctrinated. And when I asked, they were saying that they had tried everything on keto and it wasn't working. And when I asked them if they had tried bringing any carbs back in, they looked at me like deer in headlights, all 3 of them. And I was like they looked like I had said like the forbidden, the
right.
unforgivable.
Or like, you can't be keto. And they're like, wait, what? No, because they
it was like,
identified already with that choice.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I came home from that, I was doing some real deep soul searching. I was like, I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with this. I'm not going to be part of this like dogmatic community that's just sitting here like telling everybody like this persuasive has to be this one way. I'm like, I'm not okay with it. And so that's when I posted, I actually, right before we went, I had first posted a picture of an orange sweet potato on Instagram. I think it was like the month before. I was so scared to post that freaking picture. I was like, I'm going to lose my career. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, she's not keto anymore, and I'm going to lose my specialty and all this. Yeah, I had all these crazy beliefs, and I was so proud of myself for just telling the truth, because who would have known that a couple years later I would have landed a book offer about it. And it's helped me so much. Anytime that we are not living in alignment with what we truly feel is true and right, you'll start to suck. I'm like, I'm not willing to go down that road where I'm preaching something that I don't feel aligned with. I won't be able to be a good coach if I'm doing that. Like I can't,
Or you're preaching it, but doing another and not talking about the other.
Exactly. I'm not living a life like that.
Yeah. Who wants to fucking live?
No, I refuse to, like,
you walk your talk. And I think that is the most important quality. It's the most authentic. And, as I say in my book, Confident as Fucking in general, authenticity reigns supreme everywhere. The more you can get into that. So I love that you had that like internal struggle of like, oh, this fucking keto community, these hardcore. And we've had these conversations before where I've talked with some people that have been keto long term, and I feel like their brain and their dopamine, something's suffering.
Yes. And we'll talk about that. Let's dig in.
Yeah.
And I'll share.
First of all, let's dig in about those stats that you mentioned before here. And you probably do mention in your book, but for example, like there are so many ways to do keto, right? People are like high fat, moderate protein, low carb, or high fat, low protein. but again, the types of fats, I get a little bit too fat if I stay keto for too long or eat too
Right.
much fat. So many pitfalls, and we can get into a few of them. But talk first a little bit about the experience of the ratios of muscle to fat when you went keto for the
Yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah. Okay, here's the stats, guys. I share this in the intro to my book too. So, fortunately, I did do some DEXA scans, which are very reputable, sometimes considered like the gold standard in body composition testing. I took one right when I started keto, like right before I started, and I was 11% body fat. I want to preface this by saying that this is not the normal metabolic starting place for most people starting keto. So I'm going to have a little different experience. There's also some genetic factors I could go into if we have time, but
You're
I
already super fit, and
I
11% body fat is Shape magazine cover level body fat for a
I
woman. In fact, probably a little bit lower.
I had just qualified for the Boston Marathon. I was obsessed with bodybuilding and I had just gotten divorced. So I say I was on my divorce diet, right? Where you're so stressed that you're not even freaking hungry. You know what I mean? So I didn't even know I was that lean. When I'm that lean, I don't feel like I look as lean as a lot of people do when they're that lean. So I didn't even know. I was like, holy crap. So here's what happened. Right after that, I drop into ketosis. Now I was okay. I noticed I was gaining body fat right away. And I was okay with that because I'm like, I'm freaking 11% body fat. I can get up a little bit. But what happened was after I started to gain body fat at a pretty quick rate. So within 4 months, I had gained 10 pounds of body fat, DEXA scanned. I didn't want to keep going at that rate. And I was having a very hard time, even like coming back down a couple percentages because I got up to 18% body fat. And I was like, I'd rather be around 16, 15 because I can run really fast. I just feel a little more free around that range. And I couldn't get there. I just could not. And so here's the stats. I did, I didn't know I was going to write a book about this, guys. These are just random DEXA scans, but I did after 9 months of strict keto. And I'm talking, I was coaching keto alongside my boyfriend at the time, who was a keto specialist. So
You were doing
we
it right.
we're doing it right. We're eating, at the time it was butcher box and, grass fed everything and whole food avocados and, raw nuts. And it was very optimized keto. Yeah, sure. We had treats sometimes, but like it was a very optimized keto. But after 9 months of strict keto, I had gained in the end of this 10.5 pounds of fat and lost 5.5 pounds of muscle. I was still training, still doing all the things, but I gained 10.5 pounds of fat and lost 5.5 pounds of muscle. I will also add that while the benefit was, yes, I did like how I felt mentally and emotionally. I liked how my brain felt. I think I did get a stimulus change there because I had been kind of living that bodybuilder diet that's low fat before that. So I think my hormones appreciated and my brain health appreciated the boost in healthy fats. But other than that, the downside was I personally, one of my probably this is one of the things that makes me not really ever want to do an extended amount of keto again, is the fact that at the end of all my meals, I never felt satiated. It was so frustrating. So yeah, I could go a long time without eating. That got improved from keto. Like I could extended fast, 24-hour fast were like no problem after doing keto. And if you're unfamiliar, keto is basically just teaching your body how to run off fat for fuel. So that can be fat from food or your own body fat. So when you're fasting, your body's like, oh, no problem. I know how to do this. I do this all the time. I'll just run off this body fat stores. Right. So that's why that helps with that. But it was very frustrating. And I can go into that later, but insulin and is an appetite suppressing hormone. And yes, you'll still get an insulin boost a little bit from eating anything, but you get a lot more from eating carbs. And I think for me, that along with fiber are really key for me feeling full. And yeah, you can have fiber on keto too, but I think that combination of like having like strawberries, like a whole pint of them, a whole pound of them, something like that, a little bit more, some sweet potatoes, something that spikes insulin for me a little bit more plus fiber is like the ticket to satiation. We add protein to that and some healthy fat is really awesome. But anyway, okay, so that was it. So then I started to slowly incorporate carbohydrates back in, right? I was like, listen, it got to the point where I was just like, dude, I just feel better when I eat freaking apples and sweet potatoes and Greek yogurt and
Yeah.
stuff. Like I'm just doing it. I'm just doing it. Okay. So I didn't get another DEXA scan until 15 months after getting off keto. But on that DEXA scan, so 15 months after getting off keto, I had gained 8 pounds of muscle and lost 7 pounds of fat with no changes to anything else. I wasn't tracking calories during either of these phases. I did track carbs during keto and prick my finger all the time to make sure I was staying in ketosis. But this This is just the same kind of training, same, just eating intuitively, nothing, just purely eating carbs versus not hardly eating any carbs on keto. Okay. Another thing, when I got up, this is just my personal story, right? And I'll tell you why I still advocate for keto and still support keto, because my body's not the same as everybody else's body. And a lot of us have a hard time remembering that. But as a coach, it's important always to remember I'm not just like an influencer. I'm not just here to show you what I do. It's a frustrating thing being on Instagram sometimes. I'm like, oh, yeah, you're 300 pounds. Like your body has a super different internal environment than mine does. That's it. Mine
Right?
used to
You
too.
might need keto for a lot longer than I would
Right.
ever do it for. Right.
And when you lose 150 pounds, you may not need keto. You're not going to get the same benefit out of keto anymore because you got a different internal environment. So, okay, moving on. Exercise performance went down the entire time I was on keto. There's just no doubt about that. My lifts went down. My runs went down. I trained for and ran the Boston Marathon in ketosis. The training and the actual run themselves were not nearly the performance level that I'm used to.
Let me ask you this. I want to interject on that. So, because the way that I would look at it is, from an ancestral perspective, the keto was there for when there wasn't an abundance, right? And we only had animals, you only had to eat this fat, and that makes sense. But that also means there was probably some energy reserve, right? So, I guess, and you would say probably that there's certain exercises that will work better with keto. So,
Yeah.
not that you were over exercising, but were you overdoing it for the keto diet you were on? And that's why the performance went down, meaning you love all the high performance workout shit you do. And being keto kind of limited
Yes.
your ability to do that. And so you're like, nah, fuck, I'd rather do the other stuff because I like that. Is that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I did go through a strength phase. What I mean by that is training in your nervous system while I was on keto. So that's like heavier weights, lower reps, longer rest intervals. So you're really working the nervous system, which pairs really well with keto. I did do that during keto. You're right. I don't love that kind of training as much. I love glycolysis. I love glycolytic
Like,
training.
you like the carbohydrate, not dependent, but supported workouts.
Yes, I do. Yes. And even in my running, it was interesting. I did have a conversation with Mark about this because I read Primal Endurance and I was doing that whole approach. And it wasn't a fit for me. And I asked him, I'm like, maybe I'm just missing something, and he's like, well, what are your heart rates at? And I was telling him, he's like, sounds like you're fine to me, So for me, I do run. I mean, I'm kind of pedal to the metal. I push my pace really hard, even in endurance running. Now I've trained had many marathon and ultra marathon runner clients that have a way improved times on keto. I will say they're not running pedal to the metal like I was, because they're running a lot. It's been mostly ultra marathoners because they're really compelled to try keto. So they're running slower, right? And they love it. They love it. They're like, oh my gosh, I can go forever, right? So if you're going to be running in lower, speeds for a long time, keto is
And
awesome.
you're not in glycolytic, meaning you're not burning glucose, therefore you don't need it if you're under a certain heart rate, right?
Right.
If you're hitting it with HIIT or going all out, then you're above a heart rate, right? That is then kind of a glycolytic.
Right. And you're not going to be able to perform the exercise as well. And I believe that it can also lead to carb cravings because your body's like, hello, I guess if we're doing this, you're going to need to eat carbs,
That's right.
So
like you've depleted everything. You're going to need it. I mean, that's what we talk about, which is what the adjustment I had to make was, in going just paleo, realizing that I was exercising maybe too much in that phase and then craving it, and so I kind of needed to be more at that fat burning capacity. Not that I wouldn't sprint every once in a while and do that, but that's why we always say, right, if you are an athlete, which you are, if you are an athlete then your carbohydrate needs are probably going to be different based on what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And my body composition, right? Like I was super insulin sensitive before I started keto, right? Meaning like I could eat carbs and not get fat because I'm dumping so much glycogen for my running and my high intensity training. And then I'm eating it back. They're just going into my muscles and liver. It's not going to body fat, right? So different bodies, different needs. Now, this kind of caters to my whole keto in and out message. It is important to train in different stimuli, right? I'm not always in glycolytic training. I fully admit I love it. I just did a HIIT circuit this morning. I was busting ass in there, running my sprints and my ladders and slamming balls all over the place and jump rope. Like I really enjoy that type of training. I'm also a really deep sleeper and I'm pretty highly trained. So I can recover very well from those kind of workouts. They do not tax me. I don't feel like I need to go sleep after. I'm not sore. Like it's fun. It's like recess for me. That being said, it's important to go through phases of strength stimulus, right? Or hypertrophy, which would be muscle growth, right? So I did do that. And it is smart. It is smart, I think, for people to go through a phase of keto, teach their body how to run off fat for fuel, intelligently train with it. So doing a strength stimulus, like I described, doing lower intensity cardio, making sure your body can run off fat for fuel too. And then, when you bring carbs back in, then you hit the jet fuel. That's what the keto in and out program that I currently have is all about, right? It's showing how to train, how to eat on both approaches intelligently, and how to train to go with it. Okay. Coming back to the book, blood markers. I shared some blood markers. I did get some blood markers while I was in the peak of keto. This is just my personal stuff. Okay. This is just in the intro. The book is not all about me. Okay. But I just thought I'd share because it's interesting on the podcast. Cholesterol, my cholesterol, was technically quote unquote high. Obviously, probably a lot of you guys know that cholesterol conversation is changing.
Ratios.
Right. And so anyway, my total cholesterol when I was on keto was 268. It went to 190 after I brought carbs back in. And let me clarify, I did not get another blood test until a few years. It was like 3 years after stopping keto. Okay. So this is
What
just
were your
me
triglycerides during the keto?
So this is real interesting. I was kind of surprised by this because my triglycerides were 54 on keto, and they actually went down to 50 3 years after getting off keto. So that was kind of interesting. My LDL went from 149 on keto to 110 when I got off keto. Now this one, I was like, I wasn't too happy about this one, but my HDL, the quote unquote good cholesterol, which now pretty much everyone's like, all cholesterol is good, as long as you don't have inflammation markers going with it. But my HDL did go down from 104 to 67 when I got off keto. So I was like, shit, I got to eat some more healthy fats. But yeah, and I didn't have great thyroid panels. It feels like a sin to even mention this to UL because I didn't get like the full stuff. This was just part of a basic lab test. I know that. So I just have total T3.
By the way, will you at some point in the next year? I would really like to see a full panel on you because you're not struggling. And so I would love to see what the numbers are.
What's funny is I just
ordered. But you have to go get your blood work done in the morning without working out.
Yeah, that's fine. I just actually, so I ordered some when I had COVID, because I ordered them right after the bikini competition because I couldn't stop retaining water and I was getting scared something was really wrong with me because it was going on for weeks and I never got it done because I got COVID right after. So anyway, I have it on my schedule this week to go get those done. So I'll keep you guys posted.
Are you going to please add reverse T3 if you haven't?
It's all on there. It's like every thyroid.
Great. I cannot wait. Maybe we'll discuss that or show it at some point. That would be great. Cause I know you're not suffering with hypothyroid symptoms. And I imagine your blood work is going to look exactly like Mark Sisson and Brad and people who are not on thyroid hormone, but it will be interesting to see that. Also too, if you had gotten it like right after COVID or whatever, you would have seen that your reverse T3 probably would have been a little bit higher because you had been in your body was working on attacking a threat.
Right.
Okay. So I love it. You've got blood work in there. And then
let me mention real quick though, the total T3, what I do have from thyroid, it's only total T3. That's all I have, but it was 73 on keto and 114 after keto. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot we can deduce from that, but
right. What's the top of the range on your total T3 on your lab for that?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Okay. Actually, I think I have it right here. Oops. Let me see, guys. Sorry. I'll keep talking and I'll scroll up. But okay. Now this has been my path with keto. It's been like, I admit there have been some moments where I'm like, holy crap, keto changes lives when nothing else will. Like I've had like life-changing transformations. Sure. I've had clients being like, you saved my life. I didn't save their life. They saved their life. But you know what I'm saying? The keto diet that was just like this thing that finally worked for them. I've had lots and lots of improved biomarkers, like amazing things. I've also had moments where I'm like, I don't even want to coach this anymore. I'm so tired of disordered eating patterns I'm seeing people get from these restrictive mindsets. I'm tired of seeing people like unwilling to change when they're not even getting good health outcomes from it. They're like manic and crazy and they just think they have to do keto because that's like what all the cool, educated, doctors and influencers do online, and they're not cool if they don't do it too. And like there's been times where I'm like, screw it. But I have to come back into reason and logic. And so where I stand is I do think it is a really, really smart idea for almost everyone. Now, if you have health conditions, please look into it. I actually found out recently that keto actually makes a certain kind of skin cancer worse. I was like, what? Because a friend of mine has it, and I was looking it up because I was like, oh, probably keto will help. And it was like, nope, actually they feed on ketone bodies. So don't do
Yeah,
that.
that's really interesting because, back in the day when Mark was talking about it, we were talking about cancer and other things. He even said, well, I can't say for sure because there might be a cancer out there that
Yeah.
wouldn't respond. So that's interesting. Normally, though, for people listening right now, it is very therapeutic for cancer
Right.
because cancer usually feeds off of sugar. So she's saying actually this specific type of
Sorry, I
thing.
can't
So
remember
then
which
that would be a
kind.
very specific
Yeah.
thing to know. And again, each cancer is different. And again,
Yes.
don't
So
just go do it.
yeah. Do your homework, especially if you have a more
Yep.
sensitive state that your body's in. In general, I think that for most people, doing a phase of the ketogenic diet is super freaking smart because it will help you teach your body how to run off fat for fuel. And why is this so important? Right now, we are in a huge predicament in the world because we have so much food abundance and so little movement. We sit so much. Even athletes are, did you guys know this? Even athletes are considered sedentary. Athletes, professional athletes, because they sit so much. Yes, they go train for 2 or 3 hours. The other 21, they're sitting all day.
We're used to moving 5 to 6 hours ancestrally or more.
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
that's that classic, you go to the gym and then you go home and you sit all day. That is not the right move.
Right. So we're in a predicament, right? Especially now we have all these scientifically engineered foods that are super highly caloric, that there's no way in nature we would ever have like a 700 calorie bag of chips full of inflammatory oils just sitting there for our bodies, and we're just eating this huge abundance. So it's harder for our bodies because we are so and always people are eating carbs, and as soon as your blood sugar drops at all, what do? You reach for something with carbs in it to get it right back up. And it's so easy that our bodies have become weak sauce. We have become dependent on carbohydrates to constantly give us energy. And guess what your body has a real hard time doing when you do that? Tapping into your fat stores and using them for energy. So have you ever wondered why you're like, you or someone has like all this extra body fat? You're like, why does my body just not use this? Why am I like hungry when my body has all this food storage on it? It's because we have not trained it to do that well. And keto is as natural as it gets. All you have to do to enter a state of nutritional ketosis is not eat. And in nature, we would do that a lot more than we are now because food just wouldn't be available to us. I wouldn't have a pantry 10 feet away from me right now to just go get whatever the freak I want. I'd be working, I'd be moving, I'd be sweating. I was just like, dude, we don't have enough for you to just freaking sit here and snack on raspberries or like in February.
And you would be searching for the food,
Yeah.
for the problem solving
Right.
that you may not get there for a week or 2 days. And then that's the benefit. Now, we won't necessarily go there, but actually, today is a perfect example. I consider myself fat adapted. I can eat. I don't stay by a keto every. There might be one day where I'm really super low carb. That
Right.
might be kind of keto, and then there's
Right.
a day where maybe I overdo carbs. That's beyond the paleo amount of
Right.
150 max. But it's rare. But
Right.
here's the thing. So it's right now as we're talking. It's 1 o'clock my time. I woke up at 5 a.m. I haven't had anything but coffee and water at this point. However, I did before we started this. I just had like a little bit of like Paleo Valley green powder with a little bit of collagen and did that. And I will probably go eat after this, but my brain's on fire. I'm
Yeah.
not exhausted. My brain doesn't hurt. I'm not hangry.
Right.
I'm not about to murder somebody because I've trained my body to do
Right.
that. And I think maybe that's what you're getting at is the short-term keto is train your body to do something
how to
it
do
fucking
that.
hasn't done yet.
Yes.
And
Yes.
see how that feels and works. And then again, you can go in and out as
Exactly.
you need. Or
And-
if you're in a jam or you're
Yep.
on a long plane flight, you're good. It's going to start to produce, the fat off your thighs are what's going to keep you going so that you don't need to eat the Pringles on the
Right.
plane.
Okay, so a few things, highlight list real quick.
Yeah.
Why keto is cool. First of all, improving insulin sensitivity is a huge one. Training your body to run off fat for fuel, like we said. There's a bunch of therapeutic applications like chronic inflammation, migraines, traumatic brain injury, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, sleep disorders, some cancers like brain, breast, prostate. Autism, they're showing promise with ADHD, multiple sclerosis, PCOS, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, right? So there's a bunch of therapeutic applications. Some of the science-backed benefits of the ketogenic diet that I mentioned in the book were improved cognitive function, reduced inflammation, decreased appetite, which helps with fat loss, can lower triglycerides for many people, increase your good cholesterol, lower your blood sugar and insulin levels, and preserve neurons and stimulate the production of new healthy ones. And then also helps with that process of killing off your old damaged cells and creating new healthy ones. So that's all really cool stuff. So why not stay keto forever? This is where most of the meat and potatoes of the book is, right? So I'm really trying to pave that. There's not a keto meal plan in my book. If you want those, they're on my website. This book is about after keto. This is do your experiment, do keto for as long as it's working. But I have seen it. This has been my full-time job for the last 6 years. And I have seen it time and time again is people, they're getting diminishing returns. They don't feel as good. They might be gaining body fat or losing muscle. It's just like not going well. And then what? They've been indoctrinated into this paradigm that this is how I have to do it. And no, you freaking don't. So I want to talk about that. I mean, unless you have some therapeutic thing you're using it for, and that's worth it more than the other stuff. But okay. First, I like to throw in some little mind benders for my keto people. I love you guys so much, but a few mind benders here. The healthiest populations in the world all eat carbohydrates. So people in Hong Kong and Japan have the longest lifespans, and carbs are the backbone of their diets. The Okinawa, okay, we love to talk about blue zones. We love to talk about the Okinawans in Japan, how they have the highest percentage of centenarians, so people who live to 100 or older, of any population. The traditional Okinawan diet is 85% carbohydrates. I'm going to say that number again, 85% carbohydrates. China eats more rice than any other country in the world. The obesity rate in China is 5 to 6%. And it's only that high because of the higher obesity rates in the cities where American fast food is popular, where it goes 20% or higher. So it would be like less than 5%. And they like literally just live off of rice. While I was writing this book, I was getting my nails done by a woman from Vietnam. And I'm like, what? She's tiny. I mean, she's just so tiny. And maybe part of that might be they also are malnourished too. You know, there is a lot of food scarcity there. But I will say, like, I was asking her, I'm like, what do you eat? And she's just like, I've asked a few of them that now, and they just look at me and they get like these big eyes and they're like funny. And they're like, rice. We eat a lot of rice. You know what I mean? So they're eating a ton of rice, ton of vegetables. So it's interesting, right? So it's like, okay, we live in this.
Well, also too, you know, they have a different way of looking at how much they eat
How
at a
much?
given time.
Yes.
We are gluttonous, you know,
Yes.
so when we're comparing
Yes.
these cultures, also they have like the Okinawans and in general, or even the Blue Zone in Loma Linda with the Seventh-day Adventists. They're hiking, they have got a good tribe. There are so many things that contribute, obviously,
Right.
to longevity. And we
Food
are a
quality.
stressed out, effed up
Right.
society that's just go, go, go. And we just over the hell carb
And
ourselves.
right. They're not eating processed carbs. They're eating like a bowl of rice with some vegetables and broth. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
there is I'm probably butchering it, but there's a saying in Japan, it's like harabachi bu or something like that. And it just means eat until you're 80% full. That is their mentality, right? And so there's a cultural aspect to that too. They're moving more. So yes, but in and of itself, you know, we hear in this dogmatic ketogenic world that I fully admit I'm coming from inside of it. And I fully admit there's this super dogmatic attitude of carbs are bad. I literally found I don't remember his name because I'd never come across him before, but there was some doctor, some carnivore. It's not Paul Saladino. It's a different guy. There was some carnivore doctor on YouTube, and it literally just said like why all carbs will kill you. Right. And they just, that's all they're saying. And I commented, I usually try to keep my mouth shut, but I was just like, freak, man. He had like a big following. And I'm like, so many people are going to see this and they're just like trusting him. And I was like, hey, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm on the same team as you. I'm a ketogenic diet specialist. I do think it's important for us to emphasize that we're talking about processed carbohydrates here and not, you know, carbohydrates from nature. And he responded and said, no, all carbohydrates will kill you. And I'm like, holy shit, you know, like
So
that kind of
that's
shit.
not even, that doesn't make any just ancestral sense, and it doesn't make any DNA sense. Now,
Right.
if you are someone that had to go carnivore because if you eat one plant matter, you've got hives on
Yeah,
your body.
totally
There's
support
always
carnivore.
an exception. There's always
Right.
an exception. Now, and the truth is that yes, if we could we live without carbohydrates our life if we had to? Yes, we could.
Definitely.
Inuits, whatever. Okay, but we are in an environment where we don't have to live in the remote
Right.
Eskimo land
Right.
of only eating whale and whale blubber, and that's all we have. You can survive very well and you won't need a carb. But
Right.
it's about optimizing your life and also some enjoyment and living in this modern world. And so,
Yeah.
what we're choosing to mimic here, or what you're offering to choose to mimic, is the idea that we would be able to, like we are now, have some options, because there
Right.
are people in the world that don't, and
Right.
they live great. And that's the proof that you may not need a carb, is those people. But not a lot of people are up in the Arctic eating whale blubber, and that's all we got.
Right. And it's so simple. Try keto for 4 weeks, optimize it, do it correctly.
Yeah.
If at the end of that 4 weeks, you're going to know if you feel better and you're getting outcomes you like, or if you feel worse and you're getting outcomes you don't like. Either way, you did your body a favor by training it how to run off its own fat for fuel, decrease some inflammation and that metabolic groundwork that you're
And how
doing.
about
Right.
this? Doing what you do and what you're suggesting, which is, and if you run into a problem, stop it. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that that's, you would probably say the same thing. What I'm about to say is, you talk to people who intermittent fast and they ask you, should I keep doing this? And you go, here's the truth. Don't, if you're hungry and your body's telling you to eat,
Right.
and it's 10 a.m., you do it
That's right.
anyway. Don't be just, I'm a person that does keto, therefore I can't eat the apple.
Yeah.
I'm
You're not a
person,
robot.
it's about intuition, right? It's
Totally. And like you said, you haven't eaten yet. Normally I'm in the same boat on these podcasts, but today I was hungry at like 10:30. So I totally ate. I usually intermittent fast. And sometimes I go as late as like 4 o'clock because I'm running around, and I'm grateful that I can, that meal is really delicious when I finally sit down. I don't feel hangry or low energy, but if I'm really hungry, I ran 8 miles yesterday, and I usually don't get very hungry after running that. It's just like my stomach is just like, no,
yeah.
thank you. So I was really hungry earlier today, so I just went for it. So
And again, you honored it. You
yeah,
didn't
I'm
go,
not,
no, I intermittent fast. I'm going to push
it's
through
not
this.
1 o'clock yet. Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Real quickly, and let me give a rundown of why some reasons you may not want to stay keto forever. Okay. First of all, fiber. Now, I know in the keto world, we have some evidence that you can be just fine without fiber. They're talking about the butyrate, which is one of the main, like your short chain fatty acids create butyrate, and it's really important for our mental health to have butyrate. Okay. So basically, when you eat non digestible fibers, they get fermented in your gut and they turn into butyrate, acetate, some others. And it's important for our mental health to have that. Now, if you're in an actual state of nutritional ketosis, there is some evidence that maybe the beta hydroxybutyrate, that is which is ketones, that's the same thing as ketones, can replace that. So sure, that I'm interested in that. It's pretty new, and of course we do know that we have a lot of people who are on carnivore that have done it to increase their mental health and relieve anxiety and depression, and they're thriving, right? So we got to give them that. I've had other people tell me they got off carnivore and it took them 6 months to get their guts to be able to eat anything normal again without blowing up and bloating, because their microbial diversity was so low. So there's things to consider. Okay, there's always going to be
It's
different
always
people.
an N equals one, guys. Like,
Yes.
I know someone who got a food sensitivity test, and they had naturally become pretty much a pescatarian. So they don't eat any other meat other than fish and some eggs, but usually fish only, and vegetables, and paleo, but pescatarian. And it was just sort of a natural thing for them. They were always like,
Yeah.
And they were trying, though, to be more paleo by trying to eat more red, trying to be like, oh, I need to diversify. Well, it turns out they got a food sensitivity test and they had a major high sensitivity to pork and beef, which made sense. It's almost like they had been prompted naturally somehow. And so then they were like, oh, now I feel okay with the choice. You don't have to try to do something
right.
if it's not right for you.
Totally.
And everyone's different. And so when I tell people are like, oh, well, do I have to eat red meat to be paleo? I'm like, not at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not at all, man.
Right.
If you're good with fish or eggs, or you can do some whey or whatever. So whatever works for you. Right. So again, I think what I love about this book, and in general, your approach, is because you've done, and you've done all the dogmatic shit. You did the bikini competition, you did keto for a fucking year. Like, you've actually walked the walk on all of the you've done it.
Extremes.
And all of the extremes. And again, it's almost like my doctor, like middle path medicine. Everyone's different. Please just stop identifying with, even myself, like I might say paleo, but I always follow it up with like, yeah, but I'm gonna have a fucking piece of bread every now and then with brie. I'm gonna enjoy the shit out of it, and I'm not gonna
totally important. Okay, one thing I really want to get on here real quick before we wrap up. because I really want to get the word out on this, is keto's impact on neurotransmitters, because I don't
Yes.
think very many people understand this, and I want to talk about that. So when you eat a diet that is mostly protein, when it's based in protein and fats, you will favor dopamine production. Now, the way dopamine manifests in someone's personality is LRUS. Okay. So someone who is sensitive to dopamine, or we will call it high dopamine, but it really means she's sensitive to dopamine, is confidence, strategic thinking, be able to manage a lot of balls at once, find attention to detail, quick, smart. I think of them often as like engineer type brains. Like this comes from my neurotyping. The personality manifestation comes from my neurotyping system that I use with my clients from Christian Thibodeau.
And
I
you
always
did it
tell
on
them,
me, by the way. You're not just talking out of
yes,
thin air. You did it on me.
yes, she is a 1B, so that's dopamine dominant. And that when someone who is dopamine dominant eats a way that creates more dopamine, they will become more that way. So that's something interesting to know, is that, like, there's a 1A, which is even more dopamine dominant. And I had a client, and I was like, please tell your wife that you're going to become even more like to the point, short, like confident. I'm doing things my way, like while you're on keto, and he's laughing, he's like, oh, I totally experienced that last time I did keto. So that one's like not too big of a deal. If you're low dopamine, low dopamine can manifest in like apathy, not a lot of drive. You just don't really feel like doing anything, or it can manifest in addictive behaviors because you're trying to raise your dopamine all the time. So if you're like an ultra marathoner, that I'm like, those guys are always low dopamine, an over exerciser, addicted to exercise, or type 2 diabetes, you likely have low dopamine. It's correlated. So you do something like keto, not only do you get off all your medications, and it's incredible for people with type 2 diabetes, you also raise your dopamine. So you're going to start feeling more driven, more happy, more, on top of your life. Okay. But what I want to kind of flip that with is serotonin. So without getting too technical, like tryptophan is the amino acid that helps you create serotonin. Tyrosine is the amino acid that helps you build dopamine. They compete, right? They compete with each other. So when you eat a diet that is favoring dopamine production, your serotonin, your tryptophan's not going to get across and be able to convert to serotonin as much.
Is
And
that why you
carbs,
feel? Is that why you feel that you couldn't get satiated when you were keto afterwards because of the maybe drop in serotonin based on that?
possibly, yeah. And
The serotonin is about sometimes appetite suppression, right? Feeling like,
true,
because
yeah.
people have low serotonin, I've had it before. You're like craving a bunch of shit.
True. Yeah, that could have definitely been a piece of that puzzle for sure. Also, when we isolate macronutrients, did you guys know that fat is the least satiating of the micronutrients in research? So when you isolate them together, right? So if you by themselves, if you do just protein, just carbs, just fat by itself is actually the least satiating. The fiber in carbohydrates and the insulin spike help it be the most immediate appetite suppressant. Protein is the most prolonged appetite suppressant because it stays in your gut and takes a long time to digest. So an interesting aspect of that too. But serotonin, so if you already have great serotonin levels naturally, because everybody has a little bit different baseline neurochemistry, that's what makes us have different personalities, different drive, the way we show up in life. So if you're somebody who already has a little bit lower serotonin, and maybe it's not too low, maybe you wouldn't know, but you do something like keto, it can drop down, and that would manifest in things like feeling kind of emotional, sad, crying spells. You can't sleep as well at night. Especially if you have gut issues. Like I've had some people like they
I
just
had
have the
zero
runs.
serotonin at one point.
And that for
In the
you will
past,
make you like a maniac because you're high dopamine paired with low serotonin.
Yeah, Dr. Forsman even said to me at the time, he said, if this, like, we'll do all the nutritional and like supplement stuff to fix this. But if not, like, you would actually have to go on an SSRI, like, because it's not good to have zero serotonin. And also, just real quick, back to mindset, I was going through a time on the heels of that where I was like really upset about an event for a while. Like I just kind of was crying a lot. Now, whether it was a low serotonin that contributed to it, whether it was the continual crying and the mental getting into that phase begot that. But either way, I think this is a really important discussion about how this can affect your brain in a negative way or a positive way, depending
Yeah.
on what type you are.
Right, depending where you start. And then there's the whole GABA because glutamate, if you eat a lot of sugars, especially like sugars, not just carbs, but a lot of sugars, glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter. And a lot of people have anxiety because they're overexcited. Their neurons are overexcited. And then they go into keto, and a lot of people will experience a drop in anxiety because glutamate turns into GABA, and ketone bodies help that conversion. And so you get somebody who's anxious because they have an abundance of glutamate, and now you're getting some of that glutamate to turn into GABA, which is like the brakes on your brain. And all of a sudden, you're not anxious, you're not overthinking, you feel a lot better. So keto is a great fit for those people, but if they also have low serotonin, there could be that. So it's really comes down to, I go into this in more detail in the book, but it comes down to noticing how you're feeling. Are you having a major change in your mood? Your nutrition is related to that across the board, keto or not, right? So pay attention to that. And the last thing I'll say kind of on the, hormone level is talking about cortisol and adrenaline. This is one of my bigger concerns of people doing prolonged keto for a long time, because it is very, very easy to not know exactly how much salt your body needs in any given day, depending on where your hormones are at that day, or your exercise levels, or how much you sweat or whatever. And when that salt drops down, you release aldosterone, a hormone that then causes the release of adrenaline and then cortisol. And a lot of these people who are like, I'm high on ketones, this comes from Christian Thibodeau too, who, by the way, is coming out on my Inside Out Health podcast soon, and we go into this in detail. And he's like, I think they're just high on adrenaline. I don't think they're high on ketones. I think they're high on adrenaline, and it concerns me, So, and then you go into cortisol, and it's like, now you have chronically elevated cortisol, something that you were trying to do to lower your blood sugar, but now you're releasing chronically a hormone that causes you to increase blood sugar. We need to watch this, and be aware of it. So I go into detail on that in the book too.
By the way, that's a hypo thing too. So if someone's got really horrible numbers, like real bad, and they have some symptoms, and I'll be like, ask about their energy. And then sometimes they're like, no, actually, like, I feel like and I'm like, yeah, because you're running off of adrenals right now, but it's going to crash, girl. You're in that cortisol is that's what you're running off of, just like what Thibodeau said. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You don't want to be in that space, right? It feels real good in the moment. You're going to be hell to pay later, right? So get your mineral levels test. I use upgraded formulas there on my website if you guys want to get that checked. But that's a concern I have too. Again, it's also not as easy to build muscle for most people on keto. And that, again, for me, fiber. Granted, there are some people that need to do a carnivore or something similar, or even just regular keto and reduce fibers because maybe they have SIBO or some sort of overgrowth of bacteria, and they're having chronic issues or histamine reactions and things like that. It can be really helpful for a time, but for the general public, for most people, fiber is like the ticket to keeping you full and having good mental health by being able to create, ferment those fibers in your gut. And so, and also maintain good microbial diversity too. So, it's not that you can't get fiber on keto, you know what I mean? You can, but I really like that the combination of the soluble and insoluble fiber that you get quite a bit when you're eating a little bit more carbohydrates. I'm not telling anybody they need to go eat donuts, of course, and the meal plan in the book, we have 3 meal plans. One is finding your carb threshold. So we're increasing carbs and lowering fats each week, matching that with training and seeing how you feel as you go along this journey, right? And then we also have a cyclical keto, which is when you have carbs. Some people do once or twice a week. I go into all the different approaches you can do, but we have a cyclical meal plan, and then we also have a targeted ketogenic meal plan, which is when you just have carbs around your workout, which kinds you might want to try, which supplements you want to try for that. So really, it's kind of like I toyed with calling this book Carbs After Keto, but I didn't want to, because I also want, for people who are interested in even trying a phase of keto, we go into that too. So it's really honestly a book about metabolic flexibility and all the different food for thought. I really, it's important to me to educate you on exactly what Elle has been talking about, of knowing a little bit more why behind what you're doing, so you can make intelligent choices for yourself, and tapping you back into yourself and seeing how you feel when you do those things, with maybe some food for thought of, it could be my serotonin, or, things like that. So
and while I might know enough theoretically or enough to talk to you about on a basic level, I know nowhere near what you do and what you have experienced with it. And I think it's really important. You truly are an expert in this arena. And I love just Congratulations again,
Thank you.
everybody. Please go to Amazon, pre-order the book. If you watch the show, you listen to the show, we're coming out here. We're doing this out of love of our heart because we think it's fun. Please support Tara, even if you don't, even if you already know everything about keto, please go buy her book and support her. That's Short Term Keto on Amazon.com. And it does come out December 7th, but you can pre-order it right now. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, the price right now, maybe 30, 35 bucks. That's probably not what you were going to pay for it, because as the pre-order price goes along, you will get the lowest price in the next few months. So it'll probably drop down substantially, but please go support our girl Tara, and congratulations.
Thanks guys. And you'll also get it, unless you live in like Timbuktu, you will get the book right when it releases. And if you do, guys, thank you for supporting me. If you do get the book, please take a picture of it and like tag me on social media, because I would
and write a review on Amazon. Please write a review once you get it, because they won't let you write it obviously before that, but definitely go write a review as well, because all of those count so much. All right, congratulations. So excited for this. And thanks everyone for joining us. We will talk to you next week.